Bainfield has a ritual of seeking blessings through kern babies. But Jerry discovers a chained kern baby under an old dead tree and accidentally breaks it under his feet, releasing the trapped talisman. The town sees mighty miracles afterward, but they don't investigate whether it's the work of God or Satan. It's 1845 and some farmers are torturing and injuring a girl tied to a tree. At the same time, a father approaches the tree with a kern baby in his hand and performs a holy prayer to lock the corrupt soul of the girl in the kern baby. The girl screams, and following that night, her corpse hangs from the tree. The scene shifts to the present day when Jerry, a journalist, reaches Boston's small and rather old town of Bainfield in search of a story. He has to cover the story about the rising cattle mutilation rate, and the editor is only paying him the meager amount of $150, which is almost a humiliation to him as he demands nothing less than $6,000 for this story. He angrily hangs up the call after asking the editor to send him the details. But as he reaches the countryside and talks to a farmer about the mutilated cattle, Father Hagen asks him to remove the cattle from the church's property. Father Hagen immediately leaves the area as he was coughing badly, and Jerry is leaving too because this cattle was not mutilated. Hence, he will not get paid if he takes pictures of this cattle for the newspaper. But as he walks away to leave, he hears a strange voice coming from a dead tree a few feet away. The voice intensifies as he stops near the tree, but the farmer could not hear it. Suddenly, Jerry sees something hiding in the tree's dead trunk, and he digs a little to discover what it is. It was an old and chained kern baby, and there was an impossible date, February 31st, 1845, written on it. Jerry now has another idea about his story, that he will relate the cattle mutilation with kern babies, as cattle mutilation starts with a broken talisman in a kern baby. With that, he crushes the doll's head under his foot, takes a few pictures of it in the farmer's hand, and leaves. The local hotel in the town is empty. He eats and leaves in his car while recording today's story. He looks on the other side while driving to grab the bottle, and suddenly a girl comes in front of his car. To save her, he smashes the car into the tree and begins walking behind that girl. She stands right in front of the same tree where Jerry discovered the kern baby earlier that day and pledges her soul to some unseen creature. As soon as Jerry touches her, she falls unconscious. Jerry brings her to the church and discovers she is Alice, the niece of Father Hagen. Soon they call Dr. Natalie to make sure she is fine, and when Jerry tells her that he has heard her talking, Natalie believes Jerry was drunk to claim that he heard her speaking. Afterwards, she drops Jerry at a local hotel and returns. The following morning, Jerry tries to tell his editor that the cattle mutilation story is late, but he disappoints him, telling him the story is already written. Jerry is desperate to get a gig and promises to cover a story about a mute girl who begins speaking all of a sudden. The editor offers a cheaper price for the story and hangs up the call. Hence, Jerry reaches the church to meet Alice while she is in the middle of the service and hears a strange voice. She follows it and once again stands in front of the same dead tree. The rest of the people, along with Father Hagen and Jerry, follow her, and she suddenly starts speaking. Alice tells them that Mary wants them to come here again tomorrow. After the service, to ensure Alice's hearing and speaking abilities have fully returned, Natalie runs some tests and assures that she is fine now. On the other hand, knowing that this local town's miracle is going to be the big story soon, Jerry tries to sell this to Monica. She is the editor at his previous newspaper, where he sold various false stories that malign their reputation. Monica is angry that he is bluffing this time as well and refuses to buy any story. That night, Jerry dreams about a house beside a water stream where a strange creature emerges from the water to attack him. The next day, people gather around the church to see Alice's miracle as Holy Mary has asked them to come. At first, Father Hagen asks them to go, but Alice emerges from the church in a trance and stands beside the same tree again. She hears Mary's voice and sits in front of a crippled child who came here to be cured, just as Alice regained her voice through a miracle. Alice asks the boy if he pledges his soul, which he confirms. The boy tries to stand up, and the crowd bends down in faith to see him walking, despite being diagnosed as incurable by the medical board. On the other hand, the eyes of Holy Mary's statue are bleeding. The news of the miracle spreads like wildfire, and the bishop from Boston reaches the church with the Vatican's researcher, Monsignor Delgarda. They brief the media that these miracles have happened 3 times in the past, and those churches have been raised to the status of shrine, with millions of faithful arriving each year to visit. But before raising this church to a shrine, Delgard will ensure that these were actual miracles. Afterwards, Alice talks to the media, stating that she saw Mary and describes her as a pretty lady in a flowered white gown. Later, Jerry talks to Bishop and Delgard, who are not sure about the authenticity of the miracles, especially since Delgarde has uncovered 12 false miracles in his career. The area around the tree is cordoned off to keep everyone away until things are cleared, while Father Hagen does not look happy with what's going on. He goes inside the tent, and near the tree, something clicks under his feet. It turns out to be the same Kern baby that Jerry crushed. He takes it inside with him. On the other hand, Alice trusts Jerry, and he wants to record her thoughts after regaining her voice. She enjoys the sound of music immensely and tells how she prayed to God each day to regain her voice and hearing. She believes that God heard her. At the same time, Father Hagen comes into the room. He wants to talk to Jerry privately. Hagen knows what happened to the miracle girls of the shrines, as one was locked away and the other died within a year. He believes that Jerry is exploiting Alice. Jerry listens to the strange stories associated with Bainfield in his hotel room. The next day, as he enters the church, he hears Alice singing in the choir in Latin with her beautiful voice. After the song ends, Father becomes breathless from coughing and falls down. Alice asks him if he believes in Mary and pledges his soul to her. To regain his breath, Father Hagen confirms, and his breathing resumes. Delgard witnesses this miracle and is startled, but Father Hagen becomes terrified, seeing a witch behind Alice. Surprisingly, Natalie confirms Hagen's reports that he was suffering from a lung condition that gave him no more than 6 months to live. But from today's x-ray, he looks perfectly fine. From the little boy who started walking suddenly to Father Hagen and Alice's healing, all are miracles, falling under Delgard's scale that healing of an incurable ailment should be complete and instantaneous. But Delgard still wants to investigate. People from all over the world are in awe of these miracles, while some think it's the work of Satan. On the other hand, Jerry receives a call from editor Monica, who offers him to cover the story. But this time, Jerry knows the news is too big to be sold for just a few dollars. He demands an editor's desk in the office now, knowing he is the only one who talks to Alice. Monica hangs up the call to consider his terms before accepting his demands. He is happy that he will finally gain the fame in the world through this story that he craves. Watching all the disturbances, Father Hagen decides to send Alice away as she is getting directly affected by the news and influences on the church. Alice is not happy with his decision, but before leaving, Jerry compiles a mix of old and new music for her to listen to, knowing she enjoys music a lot. She hugs him, showing her trust in him. On the other hand, Father Hagen discovers a very old booklet hidden in the wall of the church. The content of the book terrifies him as a creature stares at him from a distance. Next, Jerry goes to the local restaurant where Dr. Natalie joins him for a cup of tea. He tells her that this town has been mysterious for him since day one. On the day of his arrival, he discovered the Kern baby under a tree, chained with an impossible date. She shares that old residents used to trap evil in Kern babies and inscribe impossible dates on them to prevent their return. This worries Jerry, knowing he broke the Kern baby and released the evil. But he keeps it to himself. Later, he walks with Natalie to a nearby water stream and observes a house beside it, the same one from his dream. Natalie informs him it was formerly church property. As he kneels down to peer into the water, he sees the image of a strange creature. He tells Natalie that something very strange connected to the church happened there, but he doesn't yet know what it was. Meanwhile, a late-night visitor enters the confession room. Father Hagen sits in his chamber to hear the confession, and a girl begins confessing that when someone doesn't believe her, she kills them. Suddenly, he hears various thuds in the confession chamber. He rushes out, trying to flee, but the veiled Mary surrounds him wherever he runs. That night, when Jerry opens the church door, Father Hagen is nowhere to be found, but suddenly someone throws Father Hagen's hanging corpse down. Bishop requests Jerry to hide the fact that Father Hagen committed suicide, as it's not good for their reputation. The next day, Jerry records Alice's grief after her uncle's death. She believes that Mary healed him and has taken him to eternity. Jerry questions if other forces may be playing in the name of God, but Alice sternly refuses, believing Jerry's weakening faith is dangerous. Returning to his hotel room that night, Jerry sees the same creature standing in the corridor. Ignoring it, when he reaches his room and replays today's recording of Alice's testimonial, he notices a disturbance beside her, which suddenly changes into the same strange face he saw in the corridor. The creature quickly rushes towards him. Now knowing Father Hagen did not commit suicide, the next day Jerry asks Natalie to take him where he can read church records. At the same time, they hold Father Hagen's memorial service. Monsignor Delgard leads the ceremony, while Natalia takes Gary to the record room, filled with statues and ancient records. There they find the same book written in Latin that the late Father Hagen found in the wall before his death. Natalie can read Latin, so she tells its content to Jerry, that Mary was a girl in this town who used to cure the sick, and claims she was blessed by Holy Mary. But later she confessed that she was working with Satan, and thus the church punished her by fixing the mask on her face and locking her soul in the Kern baby. On the other hand, Alice announces during Father Hagen's memorial service that Mary wants them to gather tonight and pledge their souls to get her blessings. All the people in the church bow with faith, while Jerry tells Natalie that the father had known the truth, and that's why Mary killed him, as he was doubtful that evil comes where God resides. At the same time, Jerry feels a movement beneath the statue and unveils to see what it is. There was nothing, but from behind another statue, Mary unveils herself. Jerry immediately pushes Natalie, and they run outside. He drives to tell the bishop and show him the discovered book about Mary, while Monica calls him to cover the story as she accepts his conditions. But he chooses to do the right thing over fame and refuses to let Alice perform any healings. The bishop already knew the story about Mary and believes it's all the work of God, and Mary is gone. He refuses to listen and stop tonight's ceremony, where people will pledge their souls and Mary will make her followers. On his return to the church, Jerry receives Natalie's call where she found that Mary had only one son and Alice is her direct descendant. This magic runs in the family. As Jerry hangs up the call, the ancient pages of the books melt, and the statue of Holy Mary crushes. Mary emerges to attack Jerry, but Delgard enters with a Bible and cross in his hand. He begins reciting again, and Mary leaves the room by turning into dust. Delgard wants to stop tonight's service, but a lot of people from all over come to pray and seek healings. The bishop tells security to keep Jerry away from the service. Monica herself reaches to attend it, while Delgard has discovered a way to finish Mary forever. He will once again imprison Mary's soul, which someone released by crushing the Kern baby. Jerry confesses that he did it by mistake, but as Delgard tries to light the holy fire to seal the wax, he cannot light the matchstick. Then suddenly the cross catches fire and falls on Delgard's body, turning him into ashes. Jerry drags Natalie outside the church quickly before Mary attacks them. They run towards the gathering where Bishop is conducting the service, while Alice is on the stage asking people if they pledge their souls to Mary. They say yes when she asks twice. After the third time, the ritual completes, and they will become Mary's followers. On the other hand, Jerry has a solution that only the doubt in people's minds can stop them from pledging. Hence, before they say yes the third time, he gets on stage and tells everyone that he lied to the world, that Alice and the crippled boy were not healed. They were cured through the placebo effect. Chaos ensues, and Natalie tells Alice that Mary killed Hagen and is using her. Meanwhile, Jerry reveals that he made up the story using the media, which spread it. Now Alice understands Mary's true nature. At the same time, the tree catches fire, and everyone runs away. Mary emerges from the fire and snatches her mask from her face. She tries to hurt Jerry, but when Alice gets up to save him, Mary puts her hand on Alice's chest, burning her. With that, Mary burns too, because she could only live through her bloodline, and Alice was the last descendant. Alice loses consciousness, but Jerry prays to God to revive her, and she suddenly wakes up after a deep breath. Alice is mute again, and when Jerry meets Natalie at Father Hagen's grave, he tells her that she was dead and then became alive. The movie ends here.